Hello and welcome to Be Here Now, the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show, where presence invites perspective and allows peace. We are coming to you live on newstreamingnetwork.com, home of goingboldmedia.com, goingsolomedia.com, and WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. I am your co-host, Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss
Janice Leonard.
Janice Leonard in the house. Yeah, cue it up. Yes, and today our topic is navigating uncomfortable conversations. And it's impossible for us to do that until Janice rings us in.
That's right.
Favorite beverages? And get comfy. Awesome. I don't know what the weather is everywhere else, but it has been gloomy and rainy here in southern Pennsylvania for all week. So I am sitting here in front of my sun lamp.
Yes. Here in Vermont, it's also raining really hard last few days. So
yeah,
I'm like, I've never had to put on that fancy lamp that makes me lit up. But I had to today.
Yeah. So, okay. So I think it's perfect, Janice. I am so looking forward to your good news because it's been gloomy around here all week. So tell me something good.
You know that song is. Okay.
Good news from the wonderful desk of Janice.
That's right. And this week, I am inspired by a girl that is starting school at our local high school, who I saw. And she has alopecia, which, if you don't know, is they doesn't have hair. I guess there's no simple way of saying it. That. And she's born with it. And I know her. I knew her before she came to school here. And I was watching her go into the school her first day. And I was thinking, she's probably, I don't know how accepting and open that high school is. I hope that she does okay. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard otherwise, but it just strikes me the challenge to have anything different. Mm-hmm. But today we're talking about that. And she doesn't wear a wig. And what I saw is this video that happened to come up to make this my topic for today, this was from Instagram, and it's Christy.Valdesari in Bald Torridge. And what she is she's a woman, a model with alopecia, no hair. And in the video, she is doing a modeling show with these girls with alopecia. And it's about showing their beauty without the hair. They start off going down the ramp, and they have the hair on their head, and they're supposed to walk down a certain way. And she teaches them to walk. And then right when they reach the end, they're supposed to grab their wigs and throw them to the floor. And then they walk the rest of the way and back without their wigs on. And it's just so empowering. It looked beautiful to see these girls be able to be themselves and have beauty and find beauty in themselves the way they are, which, it's certainly a struggle for a lot of us, but, I really loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. What a great way to give these young girls, and they're, boys out there have it too, these young girls courage and confidence to just be who they are and own it. Because, what you and I have come to learn in the work that we do is the more confident we are in ourselves, the more open people are to receiving us.
Right. And the thing is I don't recall ever seeing anyone with alopecia, really, until I think the traders in UK last year had someone with alopecia, but maybe they're wearing wigs and hiding it, and probably, and I just didn't know. And to see people finally being themselves and showing. That was great. And the traders, that happens too, is one of the contestants or whatever they're called. She starts off with a wig on the first time when you first meet her, and then she takes it off the rest of the show. And she's beautiful, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Bald is beautiful.
That's right.
Not for men to own.
That's right. You know, I remember I was got all worked up a few years ago. I was losing hair. I think it's part of getting old now. I think so. At the time I did, and I thought, oh my God, something terrible is happening to me. My hair went from being like in a ponytail this thick to like this thick. I was like, oh, what's happening? So, you know, she sent me to a specialist, and of course they said alopecia, but I think it's just a normal part of getting old. And it's so funny that you can be so vain about some things, and there you are.
Yes, you know, and when we're brought up in a society that encourages you to just look like everybody else, and if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. Of course, it's going to activate that trigger.
Yeah, and nowadays too, the extensions. You just see so many people with extensions and wigs, and not that they don't have hair, but they have hair that just wearing wigs.
Right.
It's interesting how hair has become a symbol of beauty for some people. I don't know if that's what it is, or they're trying to, but these pictures show it does not take that, because these girls are beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I think vanity is something that has evolved to, I don't know. I think back to when, this isn't historically accurate, or it may be, but the Marvelous Miss Maisel. Have you watched that?
Yes.
Okay, and how she would sneak out of bed before her husband woke up and do all her makeup to make sure she and I look at that and I think, really, did women actually do that? And yeah, I'm sure they did.
Wow.
So, you know, vanity was something. Those comments, you know, those sayings, don't judge a book by its cover, and, you know, first impressions are key. So, you know, all these things that have been instilled in us that, you know, make support being, I don't want to say, it's not fake, but making you feel like you have to wear a mask, like who you are isn't good enough. How you look isn't good enough.
Right.
So, yeah, this is wonderful. This is beautiful. I love it. I love it. Outstanding. Thank you, Janice. And
thank you.
We're right along, because for these girls, attitude is everything. Absolutely. Right. Just like for the rest of us, attitude is everything. So what is our weekly affirmation this week?
It's a good one.
No doubt.
Oh, I gotta do my ring. Wait a minute. Okay, which ring? I'll do this one. Okay, now we're ready for the next slide. Again, this is me. Affirmations are a funny thing. I never really did them. I did them because it's like, I didn't do it because I don't feel that way. I'd like to feel that way, but I didn't get that saying it is part of helping you believe it. So this week, I want to believe. I am believing some of it, but I'm trying to believe all of it. I am comfortable being myself around others. I trust in my decisions and choices. I am proud of my accomplishments, big and small. I radiate goodness and positivity. I release the need for validation from others. I'm a unique individual with valuable perspectives. I treat myself with kindness and compassion.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's the weekly affirmation. And any one of those individually is amazing.
Yeah.
And then you put them all together and it's like, woo, okay.
Yeah. I was wondering if I should just take a smaller little crunches sections, but I don't know. I'm getting these, by the way. I get this newsletter from a Karma, Gaia. Karma Gaia, I get, by the way. They have these, a great newsletter, and they have weekly affirmations. They have inspirational quotes. They have all kinds of really awesome information. So if you weekly, and I think I get that weekly, it's Karma Gaia.
Karma Gaia, yes. Yeah, so, you know, if all of these resonate and feel right for you to use, great. If one of them feels great. You take what aligns with you, what feels right for you, and you throw the rest away.
That's right. Even though you don't feel they're true yet.
Well, yes. And what we're learning is it's about, you know, beginning to feel. You say the words carry the vibration. So when words carry that vibration, we're inviting that higher feeling, that kindness, that respect, honoring of ourselves. We begin to live in what that feels by saying the word. And the more we do it, the repetition, we're rewiring that brain.
Yeah.
We're starting to quiet down that internal dialogue that tells us that we're not enough and tells us everything else that's bad about us.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
It's not about shutting it down. It's just about, I picture it flooding it with this higher vibration dialogue that I have with myself, which helps quiet that ego voice telling me that I suck and I'm not enough. So yeah, align with the vibration. You want to do things that feel good. You want to say words that help you to feel good, which kind of goes right into our tool time.
Oh, I get another noise. Which one should I use this thing? Okay, this one. Ready?
Yep.
Kind of sounds like a school bell.
Like a school bell.
Yeah. It's actually a Tibetan bowl. So just so you know, it's not a school bell.
Come in off the playground. Recess is over.
Oh, gosh.
All right. For tool time today, I want to talk about music first and then learning to set healthy boundaries, because music was a big part of my healing journey early on. And it has grown and evolved into part of the healing practice. It's one of the tools that I use in my sessions, and I myself go for healing sessions, sound sessions with Heather. If you all have been watching this, following us, Heather Sheets was on the show. She is my sound healer that I go to for sessions. So music for me, I was telling Janice as I was reviewing what I like to call the soundtrack of my healing journey, I really got to see where the music I was listening to, whether it was feeding my ego or allowing my ego to have a voice, which is more appropriate, allowing my ego to have a voice. And then when I was allowing my soul to be heard, because, those that have been watching, I was a rager. So there was a lot of anger and frustration and pain that I needed to work through. And I also had an hour-long drive to work every day. So I would put that music on, and this may sound crazy to some, and others it may hit home, but if a song made me cry, I put it on repeat, and I would play it over and over and over again until I could sing through it and not cry. Because to me, that made me feel like, okay, I've worked through those feelings. Because as I was singing the words and I was crying, feelings were coming up. I was having memories. It was a lot like flashbacks in a movie or a TV show. These things would come through, and that was part of my process. I would play the song over and over and over again until I could get through it without crying.
Wow.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite songs for my ego was a song called Bitch.
Oh, now I'm curious. That song sounds like.
Yes. The chorus is, I'm a bitch, I'm a lover, I'm a mother, all these things.
Oh.
I'm a sinner, I'm a saint. I'm both sides. I'm dark, I'm light, I'm all of the things. And
yes, I know that
yes,
song.
I am. So it was one of those things. And then another one was the Dixie Chicks. They go by the Chicks now. But the Dixie Chicks, that their song Make Nice. I'm not ready to make nice. I'm not ready to back down. I'm still mad as hell. And I don't have time to go round and round and round. And that was a big one when I was working through my dad issues and healing those wounds of abandonment with my dad. But it gave me permission to still be upset and angry and feel the feels, but also start to see things from his perspective. And that's where the healing with that relationship really began for me. And this song really helped me move through a lot of that.
Wow.
And then one of my favorites with from my soul music, of course, I'm light, just repeats. It's like a mantra. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. Says it. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the history of my family. The lyrics are beautiful, and just putting that on, and I play music when I'm in the shower and playing it over and over and over again and crying and just hearing those words affirmed over and over and over again. And I can I had a light weaving attunement where, I mean, it was life changing. And the next morning I woke up and I looked in the mirror and it's like, oh my God, I am motherfucking light. And I texted that to a group of my friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Jen actually put it on a necklace that I wear. And it just says, I am MF light, so that I never forget. And
that's
so
great.
that's something that was very helpful. Amy Grant, Angels Watching Over Me. All I ever have to be is what you've made me. So there's a long list of songs, but it was very interesting for me to look at it in preparation for the show and be like, oh, well, that's an ego song. That ego needed to voice their opinions there.
That's interesting.
And how much that had really helped me through a lot of that early healing journey, and just being used to allowing myself to speak about the emotions that I had stuffed down for so long. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
For me, it's interesting because I have a harder time, like if it's up here, I need real concrete kind of something. And what my music tool started was I was going through a hard time with my stepson. He was in high school, I think, bad time. And I took a hand drumming class. And, again, I'm not knowing that this is a tool to help. I just thought I'm beating something. So it must be helping me, because I left there feeling so great. But I thought it was just the act of hitting something. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. It was a lot of the vibrations and everything, which I learned later on. But I loved it more for that. But I wanted something concrete. So for me, I like the even the bells. I mean, mm-hmm. My crystal bowl. It's still a physical. For me, because I can feel it. I can feel it going, wow, wow. I can feel it in my ears. I can feel it like doing something to me. Mm-hmm. So I have a hard time going to my head, but the physical music helped me.
Yeah.
I'm calling it physical.
No, that's perfect, because that's what the deeper I got into the holistic, is I learned about how those vibrations help to break up stuck energy. That's why I was able to feel things that I hadn't felt before. Because those vibrations, the drums, help break up that energy so that it can be acknowledged, respected, honored, and released. And I love that you were drawn to the drum. And then that drumming just went on to singing bowls and crystal bowls. And, you're a sound healer. So you got that sound healing part right away, where it was something that I had to be educated into. I knew the music was helping. I didn't know why. But the sound meditations and the sound healing sessions, integrated sound sessions, helped me understand just how vibration helps.
And I played clarinet, for example, since I was 9, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I did also, one of the things I did is I joined the local, not that local, but an orchestra, and I started playing again. Mm. And it was orchestra, it wasn't a band. So there's a lot of strings and there's 2 clarinets, but the 2 of us together and the harmonies, the music and the tones were just so wonderful. So that, different perspective, but same kind of thing. That music for me, I could just,
beautiful. Yes. I love it. Music is healing. Yes. And the next thing I focused on was learning to set healthy boundaries. And that's where the pause really came in for me, because having the understanding that the way I was living, being a people pleaser and things like that, I either had absolutely no boundaries, or they were very, I like to call willy-nilly, washer. It all depended on the situation. So, pause was a big thing for me, because I was one with the knee-jerk reaction of, if somebody needed help, yeah, I can do that. Sure, absolutely. I can do that. And what I have learned over the years is just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to do it. I am capable of a lot of things, but do I want to do those things? And that was really something that I had to stop and ask. And one of the biggest questions is, am I doing this out of obligation? Am I doing it because I want to from my heart? And a lot of that's when I started to discover a lot of my doing for people was because I wanted them to love me. I wanted them to like me. And if I do this for them, then they will. And that wasn't always necessarily true. So really beginning and stop pausing and asking the question, okay, this is something that I want to do from my heart? Or is this something that I'm just saying yes because that's what I do?
You know, that's interesting because I don't know if this is ultimately the same thing, but I love doing things for people and maybe not have healthy boundaries because it made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was one day realizing I'm not really doing it for them. I'm doing it so I'll feel good. And then I had to go through that whole thing of thinking, am I really just being selfish? Then I thought I was being selfish for a while, but not exactly. But it was it was for the wrong thing.
Yeah, well, is there an expectation attached to it? I was doing with the expectation of them liking me or me being loved. So, is that really from the heart if there's an expectation for a return? And that's the question I had to start asking myself. And that was, another difficult pill to swallow. Like, no, I'm doing this because I want people to love me. I want people to like me, and it's funny because if you ask people about me growing up, they'll say, oh, she's a tough one. There's not anything that crosses her mind she doesn't speak out loud. And that is so not true. And, there was an awful lot of things I kept to myself, and it was all my insecurities.
Yeah.
Yes. The next thing, if it's not a hard yes, then it's a no or a not yet. If somebody asks you to do something and you're immediately like, and it's not a hard yes or a hard no, it's a not yet. And it's okay to say no. It's okay to say not yet. That was a big one for me too, because I would do for everybody. Doing it out of heart-centered intention, a love versus obligation, which we touched on already, making decisions that were best for me, and trusting that if it's best for me, then it's best for everybody around me. And it's best for the people that it's going to affect as well. Even if it's an unfavorable decision and it can cause some pain in the long run, it's going to be best for everybody. And, that was a big, big, huge one, especially going through my divorce. So being clear and focused on what I want versus what I don't want. I spent a lot of my life focusing on energy on what I don't want. Well, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. And then I wondered why that kept coming to me. So I learned to focus on what I do want. That helps rewire that brain, and you start focusing on those things that you want to draw near, not the things that you want to shove off a cliff. Treating myself with kindness and respect and accepting nothing less from others. It's difficult to be in the middle of a conversation that is completely normal with someone and realize that they have never really spoken to you with kindness or respect, and then having the courage to put a stop to it. So,
that's hard. I kind of went to extremes too. I went from, just being accepted that I can be spoke to improperly or unkindly, to what are you doing? And then it's like, okay, I can find the right balance. It took me a little while.
Yes, exactly. I did the same thing. I call it setting boundaries with barbed wire. I said it was barbed wire, damn it. If you ain't going to be kind, get the fuck outside the fence. Yes. And I eventually learned that it's okay to have a softer side, and those boundaries are about me. They're set within me. I don't have to declare these things to anyone, because my behavior, the energy that I focus, will clarify that boundary for anybody else. And no longer feeling the need to explain or justify my choices. I realized that there was a lot of justification because I wanted people to see it from my side. I wanted people to understand what I was doing. And then I realized, you know what? It really doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if they understand. It doesn't matter if they agree, because I've made the choice that is best for me. So this falls in beautifully with what we're talking about today. And I think we're going to go ahead and break for a quick commercial break, and we'll come back with Pathways to Peace, where we will talk about navigating uncomfortable conversations.
Oh boy.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to Be Here Now, the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. Today, we are talking about navigating uncomfortable conversations. Yes, there was a method to our madness talking about healthy boundaries first. Because I really think if we're going to navigate uncomfortable conversations, we need to be really, really clear on what our boundaries are. Very, very, and clear for ourselves. Clear for ourselves what those boundaries are. So we came up with a couple bullet points, things that we can chat about. And it's funny, Janice, I did the same thing that you did. The topic, I'm like, when did I have uncomfortable conversations? Like, I've never had them before. I couldn't think of an example. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's why I said to Judy in the pre-show, give me an example of one. Like I didn't have them. And then she said one thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, there's all kinds of them. Oh, geez.
Yeah. So one of the first things that we have found when having an uncomfortable conversation is you have to be willing to be present. You have to stay present in the moment, actively listening for understanding. I know I myself, I always considered myself a good listener, but I also have found that there were times where I would sit and listen more about, okay, well, do I have a story that is similar to this so that I can show them I understand? And that's not actively listening for understanding. That was me being distracted and looking for a story in my history.
or thinking of what you want to, they said something that triggers a thought or triggers an issue, and that's what you're going to answer with, and you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can say it. That happens too.
Yes, where you're thinking about your response versus listening. Yeah. So that's a big one, being an active listener. And it's funny because people on this, that you all have heard me bitch about education, they get a hold of something and then they beat teachers to death with it. And being an active listener was one. And they would tell you things like, nod your head, say, And I was like, You're just going, you're going through the damn system. Whatever natural response you have is wonderful. But to look at, if you're not nodding your head and saying, then you're not actively listening. I call bullshit on that, throwing a flag. Yes. So be present, active listening for understanding, and keep an open mind and an open heart. And we've talked about this before, even within our own families, we've had our own experiences that are very different from, say, siblings. And for me, not, to be like, oh, she's just remembering it wrong. It wasn't like that at all. She's a liar, blah, 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 blah. That's not an open mind or an open heart. Because everybody experiences life through their own filters. So, we had a show, Journeys with Judy, before doing this. And one of the things people would say is that I was a good interviewer. And I would always laugh and say, it's just because I'm nosy. I want to know what you've done in your life to get to where you are. And finally, one guest looked at me and said, you're not nosy. You're inquisitive. you have an open mind, and you're willing to learn. And I was like, all
There
right,
you
I
go.
like that. And then I started thinking, am I like that in all the other areas of my life? Do I have an open mind and an open heart? And am I willing to learn? Because everybody we have an experience with has something to offer that I haven't experienced. So when we're going to deal with uncomfortable conversations, it's important that you have an open mind, an open heart, and look to learn something new. Because we all have different experiences, so we're all bringing something different to the table. Courage. It takes courage to have uncomfortable conversations.
It's so much easier just to let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It really takes courage to be able to your truth, and know that no matter the response, it's not an attack on you. You've said something that has triggered the person to challenge their own beliefs. Because I know when my belief system was challenged back in the day, I would then launch into, no, I'm going to get you to understand, and I'm going to get you to see things my way. And then you'll agree with me. Because I was so tunnel vision. Yeah. This is right. This is righteous. And it's the only way it's meant to be. Well, again, throwing a flag on it. It's bullshit.
And especially as you're starting to change communication patterns, it takes so much courage because you're changing patterns that people have with you. So if it's a sibling, a partner, or whatever, they're used to you being a certain way. Then all of a sudden, maybe you're saying, well, I don't agree with that. Or if that's not how it is for me, that's something different for them. And they will respond sometimes extreme because you're not playing the role you usually play and it's different. So that is, especially when you're trying to change your patterns, it takes a lot of courage. Because that is hard and you have to give it time because it doesn't happen overnight in terms of getting a good communication because they don't get used to you changing easily.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the perfect point. And being a people pleaser, you tend to just agree with people. There were certain things that I would be like, yeah, and then other things, it was no, it needs to be this way. And so it was interesting. I would float back and forth depending on what the topic was and what I felt confidently grounded in. Interestingly enough. So yes, to look at somebody who you've always been the yes person and be like, I don't think so. Not so much. They're like, what?
Oh, it's still that way too. My sister, I've always been that. Okay, she's the dominant character, at least in our relationship. Well, she used to be, and I just went along and we traveled and did things together. I just let her be in charge. It was easier. She likes to be in charge, and that's how I felt. And it's funny, we're going to a funeral, traveling to Maryland next week, and she's older now, and she's got some medical issues, and I'm going to have to be play the leader on some things. Like I'm going to have to plan the ride to get from the airport to the hotel. And I drive an Uber. So I'm like, well, we can do Uber. And she's like, you an Uber. Okay. You'll get us there, right?
Exactly. A lot of people Uber.
So it's funny because start doing these uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes you could laugh. I guess that's one way you handle it. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Like it would take courage to look at your sister and say, I've got this. Don't worry.
Would, because she likes to control and I let her have it. I don't take it. And maybe take it maybe 10 years ago. I didn't know it, but that's not how it's always been.
Oh, yes. The next thing, take a responsibility for the energy you're bringing to the conversation. If you're coming in a defensive energy, then that conversation is going to be real uncomfortable. But if you're coming with an open mind and an open heart with a willingness to learn something new, then that's a very open conversation that allows for more truth to be spoken. Because when people don't feel like they have to defend or justify, they're more willing to dig a little deeper and find their own truth. And that truth just starts to come out as we start speaking. Janice and I both have experiences where perfect strangers will walk up and just start telling us about their lives. And that's because we have an open energy. And, we're people that can hold space for that. And 9 times out of 10, they'll look at me and be like, I have no idea why I just told you all that. But thank you for listening. So, that's the energy you want to approach an uncomfortable topic with. And I feel like it's really big in the world right now, because we learned, it was so interesting. I was talking to a friend and they were like, we learned early on, you don't talk about religion and you don't talk about politics. So people stopped talking about uncomfortable things.
It's true.
So we don't know how to talk about uncomfortable topics anymore, because if you have a different opinion, then you're made out to be the bad guy. You're made out to be like there's something wrong with you. Conflicting opinions is what that conflict divides us. So if we can just sit down and have an open, comfortable dialogue, Janice, you grew up very different than I did. I grew up very different than you did. There are things I can learn from you. There are things you can learn from me. But if we're constantly defending how we grew up, then there's nothing that's going to be learned either side. Yeah. So, be responsible. If you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone about something that's a topic that's uncomfortable, make sure you're in the right energy. And if you're not, don't do it. It means you're not ready to have that conversation yet.
And because you could have these political conversations if you're going into it with respect and openness. Absolutely. And not judgment. It's more about, it feels this way for me, as opposed to this is wrong, this is right. We're so, our society feels to me that our society is so black and white now, and you're wrong, I'm right, we against them. That breaks my heart.
In order for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
And that's not something that I choose to believe in anymore. I really do. It's something we talked a lot about at Masterful You is, there are ways where we can have win-win-win situations. And it's about us doing this kind of work, having the uncomfortable conversations so that we can figure out the win-win-win, because it's out there. It's out there, or they wouldn't fight so hard to keep us divided so we don't see it.
Yeah. So
it's definitely something that's out there. We have to, one of the jokes at Masterful You was, we get you comfortable in the uncomfortable, because we understand that uncomfortable space is where growth happens. It's where truth comes to the surface. It's where we go inside and ask the question, why am I uncomfortable about this topic? So, and of course, we need to speak with kindness and respect. Remember that no one can make you, this was a big one for me. No one can make you feel a certain way unless you give them the power to do so. Good or bad needs your permission. So the second you start pointing fingers and saying, you made me feel stupid, you're wrong. You gave them permission to make you feel stupid. And that's a self-esteem issue. That's what the big thing with me was. No one out there is making you feel, and I was pissed. What do you mean? What do you mean their behaviors and what they're saying? That's hurting my feelings. That's doing this. That makes me feel like I'm not enough. That makes me feel this way. And for my teacher to look at me and say, why are you giving them permission? It was like, you could hear a pin drop. So I had to start asking. Teacher. Yeah, I had to start asking myself the same question. Why am I giving them permission? Why am I giving them the keys to my car? Why am I letting them have this power over me? So remember that if you start feeling a certain way when you're having these conversations, take that note. This has triggered something in me. The words that were just said made me feel sad. Why is that? Made me feel angry. Why is that? Made me feel attacked. Why is that?
It's interesting because the culture I grew up with is don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. So it's interesting in the whole scenario with my sister that, I got to let her have power and control because I can't rock the boat. And because you just want me to ask myself that. And I think it's just because, my mom died when I was young and I couldn't say anything about my dad. Even when I was starting to, when you go through the age where you start learning your father's not perfect.
Right.
He didn't leave us. He could have left us kids. And, and that was the message I got. So you can't talk bad about your father.
You can't feel this.
Because he stayed. So I guess you get to let him, you can't have feelings about him because he didn't leave us too.
And yes, and I'm hearing very clearly, you didn't have the words to express. He may be physically here, but he's not emotionally here. And that's what you needed. You needed that emotional connection. And we didn't have the words for that. We didn't know. So, yeah, that's an excellent point. And collecting and sharing of thoughts, willingness to learn, and do not give unsolicited advice. So, yes, you want to think of it as, I call it data collection. When I have conversations with people, I am inquisitive and I ask a lot of questions. And if you have a question because you need clarity, you ask it with kindness and respect. Not, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why do you think like that? It's
funny thing.
Wait. That's an interesting thought. How did you get there? Asking inquisitive questions. And then this is the mom in me. Don't give unsolicited advice. That caused so many fights with my daughter. And, I had to learn that she was an introvert and she's not going to respond to things the way that I did. So all the advice that I gave her for years on how to take care of conflicts at school and with people and all that, it was all bullshit. It never worked for her. And until I had somebody look at me and say, Judy, what's wrong with you? Your daughter's an introvert. She's not going to respond that way. I immediately went back to Maddie and I apologized. I was like, I apologize for all the years of useless advice that I gave because I didn't understand.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So it got to the point where I would just sit and listen and I wait for her to ask. What are you thinking, Mom? We have a comment from Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Yay, Wendy.
Would you like to read it, Janice?
Yeah, realizing that our parents are just people with their own stories was a hard pill to swallow, but so healing as well. So true.
Amen.
Looking at your parents and thinking that they have their stories, they have their own reasons and their own histories that's made them their way. And then as a parent, looking at my grandkids or kids, 2 more minutes, and hoping that they need to look at what my story is and understand me.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that they watch you go through this healing process. And in doing that, it helps them too, because we set the example. When we hold ourselves accountable, it sets the example for them to hold themselves accountable. When we settle for nothing less than kindness and respect from ourselves and others, it teaches them to do the same. So,
yeah.
But that's what we have for navigating through uncomfortable conversations. Any tips, pointers, tools that you all use out there, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'd love to know. These are the things that have worked for Janice and I. We're not saying that they're the only things out there, and we're not saying that every single one of them is going to work for you. This is just what's worked for us. So
true.
Yes. So Janice, give them the spiel.
Oh, wait a minute. Last sound effect. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which means you can donate money to us and write it off on your taxes. You can donate by going to our website, peacefulempowermentworks.org. And at the top, there's a donate button. And at the bottom is a donate button. If you do donate $25, email me at peacefulempowermentworks@gmail.com, and I'll make you a t-shirt. If it's
Perfect.
50 or more, I'll make you a sweatshirt. Just email me, and I'm happy to do that. And thank you. We love to do this, but we got our expenses.
Excellent. We want to thank you all for choosing to be here now with us. And please always remember,
You're not alone.
and don't ever forget, you are awesome. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.